The story begins in a bustling, ancient city. In this joyful scene, the sound of chewing and swallowing suddenly echoes. The crowd murmurs and discusses. Everyone looks up in that direction. On the table is a pile of bowls and plates stacked high like a mountain. Next to it is a fat old man eating like a starving tiger. He cries while shoveling food into his mouth. He is the one who unified all the merchant guilds in Hanam Yong of the Celestial Sea Merchant Guild. Unexpectedly, a woman appears, pointing at Yong and complaining. People eat 3 meals a day, but young master eats 1 meal that equals 3 days. She tries to pull the old man's clothes while advising young master, don't eat anymore. It's bad for your health. Yong turns back, unable to hold back tears. If I don't do this, I'll remember that nightmare again. The woman named Manhwa suddenly stops, her eyes wide open. She releases Yong clothes, speaking in a trembling voice. Is young master going to live like this and then die? The scene changes to a horse carriage moving on a mountain road with Yong and his maid Yeonhwa inside. Yong removes the valuable rings from his hands. He speaks in a low voice. Now I feel that these things are meaningless. For a long time, I've tried to cover up my heart's wound with excessive eating and luxurious jewelry, but I still have nightmares about that day. Yeonhwa understands Yong feelings. He suddenly smiles, sighs, and says, When did I change my name to Celestial Sea Merchant Guild? You still call me Young Master, not Guild Master. Yeonhwa smiles lightly and replies, No matter how much time passes to me, you will always be the young master of Heavenly Center Sect. Yong looks at the woman in front of him, speechless. Yeonhwa's face is now lined with wrinkles. He reaches out to touch his forehead. Even when I abandoned my family and married into Celestial Sea Merchant Guild, you still followed me. Now you're not just a maid, but a family member. Yong touches the scar on his forehead, thinking to himself, If it weren't for you, Yeonhwa, I would have died long ago. He recalls the time before the day when Heavenly Center Sect was destroyed. I hated my family. I hated my father more than anyone in the world. A long time ago, when Yong was young, he once pointed at a stone statue and said, From today on, this person will be my stand-in. Tell my father that if he looks for me, he should look for this stone instead. Yong recalls his youthful impulsiveness. Not long after, he completely abandoned his family and became the son-in-law of Celestial Sea Merchant Guild, almost as if he was sold. Yong delusions lasted for a while, and just a few years later, the incident at Heavenly Center Sect occurred due to the attack by a rival faction. On that fateful day, young Yong knelt down helpless, witnessing his family consumed by flames, but the stone statue representing his father remained intact. Yong painfully realized that he had loved his father. The feelings were as strong as the hatred he once had for him. He covered his face, tears streaming down. In extreme pain and regret, Yong screamed and hit his head against the stone statue. Yeonhwa rushed to stop him. Young master, you'll really die! Please stop! In the vast garden, only the sound of sorrowful crying remained between the two. Returning to the present, the horse carriage continues to roll. Suddenly, a laughter echoes from inside the carriage. Yeonhwa looks at her young master in confusion. Yong appears joyful, talking enthusiastically. This time will be different. I promise to mend my cold relationship with my wife and reduce this disgusting excess weight. He rubs his head, laughing loudly, seeming much more relaxed and looking forward to the future. Yeonhwa is overjoyed and emotional, responding, Young master. She is about to continue speaking. Suddenly, a body is thrown violently into the carriage, directly hitting Yeonhwa, who is sitting and talking. Immediately, the carriage is destroyed. Yong is also thrown out, crying out in pain. From the outside, it can be seen that the body flew in at a tremendous speed, passing through the carriage and causing a huge shock. Yong is thrown out, his jewelry scattered everywhere. He falls to the ground, groaning in pain. A white-haired old man covered in blood sighs. My intestines are like torn rags. Meanwhile, figures in black quickly approach. The old man can't react in time, only watching as they approach. A black-clothed man points his sword at the old man. The atmosphere around them becomes tense as they engage in combat. The sword pierces through the old man's palm, and points directly at his shoulder. The black-clothed man smiles complacently. "Didn't I say you couldn't escape?" The old man coughed up a mouthful of blood and shouted, "You dare to betray me!" The others quickly closed in, stabbing him with their swords, and their blades were stained red with blood. One of them said, "The legendary demonic's glory will end today." "Let's take our time, master." The old man roared blood demon manifestation. He channeled his inner energy, and a red light enveloped his body, sending those around him flying. "If I don't crush you, I'm not demonic." The others were affected, writhing in pain as they fell back. Meanwhile, Yong Hwarin lay motionless on the ground. He struggled to crawl to his feet, his body aching. The old man saw a familiar figure lying before him. Yeonhwa, someone he considered family, now lifeless. Yong Hwarin, seemingly finding strength from somewhere, rushed over, frantically calling out Yeonhwa's name. He lifted Yeonhwa, his eyes welling up with tears. Tears streamed down his face as he looked up to the sky and wailed, "What's going on?" On the other side, the white-haired old man slowly emerged from the battlefield, where bodies and blood lay scattered. He struggled to move forward, muttering to himself, "I must find a new body before my breath fades." Fresh blood continued to flow from him as he muttered about the soul severance possession technique. His body weakened. He supported himself with his hands on the ground. His head hung in despair. "Damn it, is my journey ending here?" Suddenly a voice spoke up. "You old man, Yong Hwarin is standing right here, rebuking. Because of your fight, my family lost their lives. Why did you fight here?" Yong Hwarin, losing his composure, rushed forward, grabbing the white-haired old man's collar, shouting, "Tell me my family is dead!" Though he cried out, the old man's gaze remained deep and unfathomable, making Yong Hwarin falter as he called out to him. The white-haired old man, despite his frailty, swiftly reached out. His fingers quickly brushed across Yong Hwarin's acupoints, rendering him unable to resist. Yong Hwarin fell back, realizing the technique used on him. This was the acupoint. He crashed to the ground with a loud thud. Yong Hwarin tried to move but was horrified to find he couldn't. The white-haired old man approached red mist swirling around his body. "A wounded old man like you can still be so ruthless," he sneered. Yong Hwarin suddenly realized and felt unwilling and regretful, thinking, "I should have recognized you as a martial arts master long ago. I'm so careless it's deadly." The demonic master, his body emitting a fiery aura, sat beside Yong Hwarin, observing him for a moment before saying, "With the soul severance possession technique, I had hoped to find a young body with good potential to continue living longer." He sighed, his face turning gloomy. "But when life hangs by a thread, I have no choice. I must live on even in a pig's body." A red aura enveloped his hand as he muttered, "Left hand gather the 3 chi energies." His other hand was placed on Yong Hwarin's head, focusing the essence of his spirit. Once prepared, Demonic Master transferred a fiery energy into the new body, enveloping both their bodies. As the energy dissipated, Demonic Master collapsed onto Yong Hwarin's massive frame. A moment later, Yong Hwarin suddenly sat up, pushing Demonic Master off him. He tested his limbs, grunting in assessment. Yong Hwarin's face revealed a sinister smile, clearly successful in his attempt. However, before he could rejoice, Demonic Master sensed something wrong, growling you. His consciousness within Yong Hwarin's body questioned, "Didn't you get suppressed by my chi and spirit energy?" The original consciousness of Yong Hwarin, enraged, snarled, "I won't die like this." The two consciousnesses within Yong Hwarin's body clashed fiercely. Yong Hwarin resisted, determined to live on and avenge his family. But he was quickly overpowered by the demonic master. "Your will is strong, but futile," the master sneered. Yong Hwarin's remaining consciousness was gradually swept away. Just then a figure in black, presumed dead, appeared behind Yong Hwarin's body, holding a sword. He panted, smiling, "You've transferred your body. Demonic Master, you're truly great. Many demonic beings among the 3 heavenly demons call you Master, and for good reason," he added. The black-clad figure gripped his sword tightly and jumped forward. "Your parasitic life ends here." Demonic Master was shocked. What he hastily tilted Yong Hwarin's massive body to dodge, but it was too late. The sword pierced through the new body's neck. No, the soul severance possession technique was almost complete, he lamented. Along with a resounding scream, a fiery red light burst forth, covering the surrounding forest. The scene shifted to a place under a clear blue sky. In a familiar courtyard, Yong woke up thinking his head was about to explode. He sat up, looked around, and wondered, "Where am I? Is this a room?" After looking around, Yong felt extremely thirsty. He grabbed a nearby cup and drank its contents in one gulp. But he paused, thinking, "Too bitter. Is it medicine?" Not until now did he realize that his hands were still smooth and unblemished without any signs of aging. A voice full of doubt. At that moment, a loud, ear-piercing scream and shouting erupted. Yong couldn't believe his eyes as he looked down at his hands. The bowl he had been holding had just fallen to the ground and shattered. Yong was frightened, muttering to himself, "What's happening to my hands?" Yonhua heard the commotion and immediately opened the door, rushing in. "Young master, are you all right? I just heard the sound of something breaking." Yong didn't say a word, rushing towards her and grabbing her shoulders. Yonhua was surprised and didn't understand what was happening. Yong asked in a shaky voice, "Yonhua, is that really you? Why do you look so young?" Yonhua sighed. Looking worried, and asked, "Young master, did you have another nightmare?" Yong remained silent, telling himself that it was just a dream. He turned around, and his bare feet were bleeding, because he had stepped on the broken pieces on the floor. Yonhua cried out anxiously, "Young master, why are you walking barefoot like this?" But Yong was lost in thought, thinking, "This pain." His face showed a look of shock, as he wondered why it felt so real. Yong quickly looked out the window and suddenly thought of a possibility. Could it be? His eyes widened as he focused on a particular point. Yong ran barefoot, hurrying outside to verify his suspicions. Yonhua followed closely behind, panicked, and calling out, "Young master, why are you going out with your injured feet like this?" He ran to the stone statue and was shocked, unable to believe his eyes. "Why is it here?" Yong remembered the fateful night, clearly recalling how he had wailed in anguish. He remembered how he had frantically hit his head against this stone statue, returning to reality. Yong trembled as he reached out to touch the stone statue in front of him. His whole body shook slightly as he gently called out to Yonhua. Tears streamed down Yong young face as he asked Yonhua, "When did I erect this stone monument?" Yonhua still didn't understand what was happening, but obediently replied, "About 5 days ago, young master." Yong muttered to himself, 5 days, I can check again." And at that moment, Yonhua was taken aback by Yong next action. He raised both hands, grasping the stone statue tightly, and then leaned his head back. Yonhua hesitated, asking, "Young master." A moment later, Yong used all his strength to slam his head against the statue. With a loud crash, the statue shattered under his blow. Yonhua cried out in shock, "Young master!" Blood flowed down, staining Yong young face, but he smiled. "It's not a dream." Although he didn't understand what was happening, he knew that he had returned to the past. Looking at the shattered stone pieces on the ground, he thought to himself, "If I'm not mistaken, there are about 3 years left." Yong stood still, his head still bloody, silently muttering to himself, before the downfall of his family. The surrounding servants witnessed the scene bewildered and unable to understand what was happening to their young master. Yong gritted his teeth, disregarding his disheveled appearance. His eyes shone with determination. "I must protect Heavenly Center Sect and the people I love." The rolling mountains appeared like a beautiful painting. This was Heavenly Center Sect, a martial arts family located in Haven County near Heavenly Center Sect Mountain in Henan. Many families had used the name Heavenly Center Sect Mountain to mark their clan, and Heavenly Center Sect of the Dragon Clan had gathered them together. Thick clouds surrounded the mountains, revealing the image of a dragon soaring. Those who had lived through that era all affirmed that the prestige of Heavenly Center Sect was extremely powerful. However, now that its fame had faded, people simply referred to it as Heavenly Center Sect. The scene shifted to the front of a house in a secluded courtyard where someone was enjoying tea. The person put down the teacup on the long altar and sighed. 30 years have passed since the day Henan's first dragon, Senior Gao, disappeared. I don't know why no other talented individuals have emerged. The person sighing was none other than Yong, the sect master of Heavenly Center Sect. He sat facing his wife, speaking slowly. Currently, everyone considers us a declining martial arts family, but what's even more painful is that I can't deny this fact. His wife smiled gently, pouring tea for him. I just hope Yong Huarin recovers soon and leads Heavenly Center Sect. Upon hearing this, he replied, My wife, you see how much Yong Huarin hates me. I'm doing this for his own good, but I think I made a mistake by rushing into remarriage while his pain of losing his mother still hasn't subsided. His wife comforted him. Let's wait a little longer. Maybe Yong Huarin just needs time to accept it. Her words made him even more worried. I thought things would gradually improve, but as time passed, the distance between us only grew wider. Even 5 days ago, when he visited Yong Huarin, the young man had erected a stone statue and said it was his image telling him to come and meet the statue instead of him. The sorrow overwhelmed him, and he brought his hand to his temple. Realizing he had spoken too much, he quickly apologized. Sorry, my wife. I've said too many unpleasant things today. Suddenly, from afar, a servant came running in a panic. Sect master. Upon hearing this, he turned back to look at Yanhua. What's wrong? Why are you in such a hurry? Yanhua was tearful, unable to speak. Young Master Yong Huarin. Seeing this, he became worried. Don't cry. Tell me quickly, Yanhua. Yanhua screamed. Young Master Yong Huarin has hurt himself and fainted. This news was like a thunderclap on a clear day, shocking both him and his wife. At the same time, Yong Huarin was lying in the room, immersed in a painful nightmare. The scene shifted to a memory of him as a young boy playing beside a waterfall, which was the Yong Huarin from his childhood, and the woman in red sitting on a rocky outcropping was his mother. Seeing him happy, his mother spoke up. Yong Huarin, do you really like this Leng Zhenglua waterfall so much? The little boy replied happily. Yes, there are many carp here. As he pulled out his hand, catching a golden carp, he excitedly showed it to his mother. Look, I've caught a big carp. Suddenly he saw something strange. His mother had fallen to the ground. The little boy panicked, releasing the carp and rushing towards his mother. The scene shifted again to his mother, lying sick in bed with him, always by her side, calling out weakly, Huarin. He leaned his head against the bed, crying uncontrollably. His mother, with great effort, raised her hand towards him. Come here, my dear child. You like carp so much it's a pity Mother can't go fishing with you anymore. Mother is sorry. The little boy rushed to hug his mother tightly. Despite being very weak, she still comforted him. Mother will be fine. Don't cry. Suddenly, a voice echoed, making him shudder. Stop wailing so pitifully. Bloodhand Fei Ma appeared menacingly, replacing his mother's presence. He shouted cruelly, You weakling! Now it's time to accept my body. Then the old man opened his mouth wide, revealing sharp teeth, heading towards the little boy who was terrified. In the midst of his confusion, Yong Huarin suddenly woke up from the nightmare, sitting up with his face still covered in sweat, his fear still lingering. He looked around, trying to recognize his surroundings with difficulty. Seeing the familiar decor of the room, he realized something. This was his room from his youth, a mix of familiarity and strangeness. Recognizing that everything was as it used to be, he couldn't help but sigh. If he was still here, it meant he had returned to the past. At this moment, Yong Huarin understood that he had reincarnated back to a previous time. He bit his lip hard, lost in thought about his past. A past where he hated his father and distanced himself from his family, the image of his father being brutally killed by multiple swords. The memory of his father's death and the downfall of his family flashed in his mind. Upon realizing he had lived again, a strong thought emerged in his head. Perhaps if he had known the future, He could have prevented those tragedies. Suddenly, a red glow emanated from his body, surprising him. Outside the room, 2 female servants were discussing him. One in blue clothing wondered, did the young master really use his head to smash the stone statue? The other with orange hair didn't believe it, waving her hand. Impossible. How could someone as weak and sickly as him do that? Moreover, Yong had never learned martial arts. The orange-haired servant insisted I saw it with my own eyes. There must be some mystery behind it. Before she could finish speaking, the door to the room suddenly swung open. The 2 servants were startled, turning around. They trembled as they looked at him. Young master, it's not like that. But Yong didn't pay attention to them. He also didn't forget to clutch his belly, and the red glow from him continued to emanate. He wondered, what's happening to my body? Suddenly, a surge of heat burst forth from his lower abdomen. He felt a strong desire which shocked him, making him gasp. I'm going crazy! Recalling his condition, he reminded himself that at this stage, not only was his lust strong, but even walking was difficult. He gradually realized something. This surge of energy was due to the true chi of that old man turning into yang energy. Danger. It was the true chi of that old man. He could sense it. The old man he was thinking of was Bloodhand Fei Ma, who had appeared in his dreams. With the true chi in his body surging violently, he thought, no, this can't be. If this massive true chi continues to rise, I might do something uncontrollable. As he thought, he rushed out without caring about the 2 servants' panic young master. The 2 servants saw him still wearing his nightclothes as he ran out. Couldn't help but shed tears. The weather is still cold. Why is he dressed so thinly? We'll be punished. Ignoring their words, he rushed straight towards the forest edge. The surge of heat continued to rise, covering his body. He didn't dare to stop even for a second, fearing that if he wasn't careful, he would be controlled by the old man's true ki. Then, as if driven by something, he saw his destination. He had arrived. He jumped down. Below him was the waterfall where he used to play with his mother during his childhood. Young emerged from the water, tears streaming down his face. Steam rose from his body. He breathed heavily. I almost died. A chuckle appeared on his lips. Suddenly a voice called out Yong. It was his father rushing towards him. Yong was surprised to see his father here. Father? His father jumped into the water. Worried Yong, what's wrong? His father's tears mixed with the water as he hugged his son tightly. Even if you hate me, you shouldn't do something so reckless in this cold weather. Yet he couldn't stop asking, checking his son's forehead. Are you okay, my son? Listening to his father's worried words, Yong remained silent. The longing he had suppressed for so long now burst forth upon seeing his father again. He was about to hug his father, but hesitated. If after so many years of separation he suddenly became close to his father, everyone would surely find it strange. He tried to restrain his emotions, first getting to know his father gradually. But in the end, he couldn't help but tightly hug his father, whom he hadn't seen in many years. Yong sobbed and spoke incoherently. Father, your son. He hugged his father tightly, wanting to say the deepest things in his heart had returned. He silently wished, please be real, don't stop. If this is just an illusion, please make it eternal. 3 months passed, and Yong was sitting by the lake fishing with a young man. The other person turned to look at him and said, Brother, it seems like I'll win this fishing bet. You're only good at fishing, right? This was Yong Hwarin's half-brother, sharing the same father but different mothers. While he was reflecting on the past, he felt a sense of unease in his heart. In the past 3 months, he had become closer to his family. In his previous life, he hadn't even had a conversation with Yong. Yong had gone mad while practicing the family's secret martial arts technique and became crippled, which led to the decline of the Heavenly Center sect, making it a branch of the Yiji Shijia. At that time, he was the son-in-law of the Celestial Sea Merchant Guild. He lived in a daze, unaware of anything until it was too late to realize the tragedy of his family and couldn't do anything to save it when it collapsed. Yong interrupted his thoughts. But brother, haven't you stopped taking your medicine? He replied. Those medicines made me like a fat pig. Upon hearing this, Yong couldn't help but show surprise. Huh, brother, you've never spoken like that before. Noticing a slip of the tongue, he explained, No, I mean I'll become like that. Then Yong opened his fishing basket to show off. Anyway, I like the current, you brother. The young boy pointed to the two fishing baskets, one belonging to him and the other to Yong Hwarin, and smiled happily. Brother, you bet with me, and I won, didn't I? He looked at the fishing baskets and wished, Our money. Suddenly, Yong Hwarin lifted the two baskets and threw them into the air, causing the fish to scatter into the water. Seeing this, Yong covered his face and cried. Before he could even react, Yong Hwarin hugged his younger brother and jumped into the lake, playing and teasing him. You have to throw away the biggest fish, Yong exclaimed in panic. After that, the two of them jumped into the lake together. He smiled happily, while Yong spat out mouthfuls of lake water beside him. I never knew he was such a lively child before. After a while, the two climbed back onto the shore, carrying their fishing rods to head home. As he patted his younger brother's head, he felt a bit guilty. I've made him carry too heavy a burden. I'm sorry, Yong. The scene changed to Hwarin diligently training his muscles. He was tense and very serious. He was doing push-ups to improve his strength. Lately, he had spent most of his day training. As he switched to sit-ups, he thought that before formally learning martial arts, he needed to strengthen his weak physique. After the training session, Yong Hwarin sat in meditation under a waterfall. The flowing water covered his head. Sometimes he worried that he would be controlled by the sudden burst of true energy from the old man, but fortunately nothing dangerous had happened so far. Occasionally, the true energy would surge uncontrollably, forcing him to soak in cold water every morning. But as he was about to get out of the water, Yong Hwarin saw a lovely sight. It was a little girl wearing a pink dress with a beautiful flower pinned to her head. Seolan. It turned out to be Yong Hwarin's half-sister, who had come to bring him a towel to dry off. Seeing this, he quickly got out of the water. I told you not to come here, but the little girl happily replied, I'm glad to be close to you, brother. He took the towel from the little girl and dried his hair. In his previous life, he had never spoken to Yong, who was always afraid of him, but he had treated Seolan, who was always friendly to him, poorly a few times. Seolan was lively and loved festivals like moon viewing and fireworks. Even when he was being stubborn, she would often invite him to join her. Memories of the past surfaced in Yong Hwarin's mind. He recalled Seolan timidly saying, Brother, last time I mentioned the fireworks festival. Before she could finish, he snapped, Are you kidding me now? He looked at her with a fierce expression. Do you think I have time to play with you? Never ask me for favors again. The little girl was rejected harshly, looked sad, turned around and cried. Twice she asked, and twice she was rejected. He still refused his dear little sister. At that time, Yong Hwarin didn't fully understand, but now he felt it deeply. This was also the last time he spoke to Seolan. On the day she wanted to go out, but couldn't, she went alone and had fun. He thought Seolan was murdered while out having fun, and his father personally investigated the case. Not long after, his father was also assassinated. In the past, Seolan had invited him to join her twice. The first time was during the moon viewing festival today. The second time was during the Dragon Gate festival a year later. It was during that Dragon Gate festival that Seolan would be murdered. Returning to the present, he put on his cloak and turned to say to Seolan, Didn't you say the moon viewing festival is today? Yes, upon hearing this, the little girl was overjoyed, almost crying. I thought you had forgotten. Will you really go with me, brother? Seeing her happy, he didn't want to ruin her mood. Of course we have to go together. By the way, let's go shopping with Seolan. The little girl happily agreed. Yes, let's go right now. After that, he and Seolan happily returned. This was a precious opportunity they had, and they couldn't let things happen like they did in their previous lives without being aware. Yong Hwarin reminded himself that he needed strength to revive his family and protect them. He needed strength. The scene shifted to inside a mansion where a group of people, shirtless and lined up neatly, were moving forward. Among them was Yong Hwarin, who was sweating profusely as he ran. He thought to himself that he should be resting in his room, drinking medicine and reading books and isolating himself from the outside world. Sweat flowed down his face, but now everything was different. It was ironic that all of this was thanks to the miraculous vital energy from the old man. Yong Hwarin's physique was robust and his muscles were visible as he ran along with the group. He thought to himself that he felt itchy and wanted to test the changes in his body. Suddenly, a voice called out from afar. "Yong Hwarin." He was slightly surprised, turned around and replied, "Father." The person who appeared was none other than Yong Biyang, the sect master of Heavenly Center Sect, and Yong Hwarin's father. His eyes were teary, and his face was filled with emotion as he said, "You've changed so much. I almost didn't recognize you." "My son has grown up." The sect master rushed over and hugged his son tightly, making Yong Hwarin feel embarrassed and pressured. He said, "Father, everyone is watching." However, his father didn't care and continued, "What if they are watching?" Yong Hwarin put his clothes back on as his father spoke. "Yong Hwarin, you're not just training your body, but now you'll officially learn the family's martial arts." "What do you think?" Yong Hwarin replied. "I was thinking of doing that too, father." The sect master's face lit up with a bright smile. "Really? Then I'll arrange for someone to teach you right away." Yong Hwarin was surprised and could only exclaim in response. After composing himself, Yong Hwarin said with a satisfied tone, "Actually, I've been paying attention to someone." The sect master asked curiously, "Who is it?" Just then a loud shout accompanied by hurried footsteps was heard. "Brother Masa!" Solan rushed over with a bright smile and hugged Yong Hwarin tightly. The sect master gently scolded, "This girl only has eyes for her big brother and doesn't even look at her father." Yong Hwarin chimed in, "Because she's chosen by me, father. Isn't she beautiful?" The sect master sighed helplessly at the scene. "I have nothing more to say." Seolan responded to her father's displeasure. "Father, I love you too." Watching the two in front of him, Yong Hwarin thought to himself that improving his physical strength alone wouldn't be enough to protect anyone. First, he needed to have enough strength to defend himself. He had to learn martial arts. As he thought about this, the image of a person gradually appeared in his mind. Soon after, the scene shifted to a different courtyard where a woman in red was practicing sword techniques. Her movements were agile, each step firm, and the sharp sword sliced through the air, creating powerful waves of energy. With a high jump, she soared into the air and then landed forcefully on the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust around her. Her face was stern and sweat drenched her entire body. The woman was none other than Mo Bi Young, known for her skill with the Longhua sword. She turned around, her cold gaze directed at the person who had just arrived, and asked curtly, "What brings you here?" Her demeanor exuded a noble temperament, but her voice remained cold. The person who arrived was Yong Hwarin, who smiled brightly, clasped his hands together in greeting, and said, "Long time no see. I actually have something I need to ask of you." Mobi Young silently observed Yong Hwarin's cheerful demeanor, thinking to herself that the rumors about his recovery were true. Although her expression remained cold, she couldn't help but wonder why she, who had never really talked to this stubborn person before, was being asked for help now. She asked, "What is it that you need help with?" Yong Hwarin clasped his hands together, bowed respectfully, and said, "I want to learn sword techniques from Longhua Sword. Please accept me as your disciple." His face was determined as he looked at Mo Bi Young. Upon hearing this, Mo Bi Young was taken aback. After composing herself, she thought back to the rumors she had heard about Yong Hwarin's transformation a few months ago. She gazed at Yong Hwarin, evaluating him, and continued, "He seems to have changed a bit." However, recalling his past image and the deep-seated resentment he had harbored, Mo Bi Young still had doubts. Could someone change so easily? Even with family discord, many people remained optimistic, but Yong Hwarin had isolated himself and harbored long-standing resentment. This thought made Mo Bi Young coldly turn away, and she uttered 3 words, "I refuse." Yong Hwarin was taken aback, his lips trembling and sweat pouring down. He asked, "Can you please give me a reason?" Mo Bi Young replied, "Heavenly Center Sect has martial arts secrets, but I'm busy researching why it's been stagnant." She turned away coldly, leaving Yong Hwarin standing there in shock. In her heart, she thought Long Gongzi. I'm sorry. I have to do this, but people don't change easily. Yong Hwarin's expression turned gloomy after being rejected. His eyebrows furrowed slightly as expected. Watching Mo Bi Young's departing figure, he thought to himself that she must still look down on him. Recalling past events, Yong Hwarin thought that Mo Bi Young was someone who rarely participated in external activities, so not many people in the sect knew her true abilities. Perhaps she didn't intentionally hide the image of Mo Bi Young in the mighty armor, making Yong Hwarin even more determined. But with the experiences from the future, we know that she has achieved accomplishments that few people in the sect can match. As Mo Bi Young was about to leave, she suddenly heard a noise behind her and turned around. Yong Hwarin had knelt down right behind her, making her exclaim in surprise. Regaining her composure, Mo Bi Young shouted loudly, "What are you doing? You're the young master of the Yong family. How can you kneel down for such a trivial matter?" Yong Hwarin's face turned gloomy, and he replied tremblingly, "It's not just a trivial matter," which made Mo Bi Young frown in confusion. Still kneeling on the ground, Yong Hwarin looked up at her with determination and said loudly, "To me, this is not a trivial matter at all." Memories from the past flashed through Yong Hwarin's mind. Mo Bi Young, clad in armor fighting bravely on the battlefield, was the most passionate person in the war against the rival sect that destroyed Heavenly Center Sect. In that battle, Mo Bi Young wielded 2 swords and killed countless enemies. Although the title Blood Dragon Flower she received was not glorious for a woman, she continued to strive to rebuild Heavenly Center Sect. However, after those glorious memories, a tragic image appeared. Mo Bi Young, covered in blood, fell to the ground and eventually died under mysterious circumstances. Returning to the present, Yong Hwarin frowned, his eyes filled with determination. "The person who sacrificed everything for our family. I will not let that happen again, not just to Mo Bi Young, but to Heavenly Center Sect as well." Seeing the young master kneel down before Mo Bi Young, she felt a stir in her heart. The atmosphere had changed. It seemed that Yong Hwarin had truly changed his mind. After a moment, she spoke up, "I agree." Upon hearing her words, Yong Hwarin was taken aback. With excitement, he looked at Mo Bi Young, not believing his ears, and asked, "Really? You agree?" Mo Bi Young replied calmly, "Yes, but with a condition." Her face still expressionless, she continued, "If you can defeat me in a match, I will accept you as my disciple and teach you martial arts." Although this condition made Yong Hwarin hesitant, he shouted loudly, "But there's a huge gap between me and the Dragonflower Sword." Mo Bi Young didn't let him finish speaking. She explained the condition for victory. "If your sword can touch my body, it will be considered your win, young Master Yong." Moreover, in this match, she wouldn't use the martial arts of Heavenly Center Sect. However, in her heart, she thought that it might not be that simple. Finally, with a cold gaze, Mo Bi Young looked straight at Yong Hwarin and asked, "Do you agree?" Faced with her gaze, Yong Hwarin felt pressure. He remained kneeling, his head bowed, thinking, "Since returning to the past, I have been training tirelessly. If that's the case, then." As his thoughts came to an end, Yong Hwarin's eyes lit up with excitement and determination. He shouted loudly, "I agree to the match!" Before long, Yong Hwarin lay defeated on the ground with cracks appearing around him. He was puzzled. His face was full of shock, his eyes wide open in surprise. "I was knocked down without even touching her fingertips. The gap is that huge." Despite Yong Hwarin lying defeated on the ground, Mo Bi Young turned her back and said, "I won, so I'll take my leave." At this moment, Yong Hwarin, still on the ground, gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He suddenly jumped up and rushed towards Mo Bi Young's back, wielding his wooden sword and shouting, "It doesn't end here!" However, Mo Bi Young remained calm, casually waving her sword to block Yong Hwarin's attacks. Immediately after, a fierce attack struck Yong Hwarin's face. Despite the pain, he still shouted, "It doesn't end here!" Another attack hit his face again, but Yong Hwarin refused to give up. A third attack came from above, and Yong Hwarin was determined to end it. When Mo Bi Young sheathed her sword, Yong Hwarin was left battered and sat down on the ground. His face was now covered with numerous wounds to the point where even his parents might have difficulty recognizing him. However, his hand still gripped the wooden sword tightly. This scene caught Mo Bi Young's attention, and her gaze wavered. She cupped her hands together and said to Yong Hwarin, "Thank you, young Master Yong." Then she turned to leave, unaware that behind her, Yong Hwarin was undergoing a tremendous transformation, his body beginning to emit a special aura. The red aura surrounding Yong Hwarin grew increasingly intense. Noticing this, Mo Bi Young stopped in her tracks, her eyes wide with surprise. Behind Yong Hwarin, a red aura continued to emanate, his hand still gripping the wooden sword tightly as he slowly stood up. His face was now stern, his eyes shining with a fierce light. Seeing this scene, Mo Bi Young couldn't help but wonder, isn't the red aura a sign of the martial arts of Heavenly Center sect? As Yong Hwarin's aura enveloped his body, Mo Bi Young felt a surge of alarm and shouted, "Young Master Yong, snap out of it!" Just as she finished speaking, Yong Hwarin's eyes blazed like fire as he charged towards her, shouting loudly. Although caught off guard, Mo Bi Young reacted quickly, waving her hand to create a sword aura that deflected Yong Hwarin's attack, forcing him to step back. After the clash, Mo Bi Young let out a soft hum. Her eyebrows furrowed, she thought to herself, so fast. Yong Hwarin, although pushed back, did not stop immediately and appeared before her, gripping his wooden sword tightly and swinging it up in a surprise attack. This strike carried enormous power and dizzying speed, catching Mo Bi Young off guard. She was hit with a strong blow, and her body was sent flying backward, crashing into the wall. Her complexion changed in an instant, and she thought to herself that it was dangerous. But before she could recover, Yong Hwarin continued to approach, her sword in hand, preparing for the next strike. Immediately, a stream of sword energy shot straight at Mo Bi Young, and her complexion changed slightly, as she thought to herself that she could only defend. She drew her sword and silently recited the Imperial Soaring Dragon Sword's first technique. However, Yong Hwarin's next action shocked her. The sword energy stopped right next to her. The wooden sword lightly touched Mo Bi Young's arm, causing her to furrow her brow in confusion. Yong Hwarin, with a face full of wounds, smiled weakly and began to speak, his voice seemingly about to fade away. But he still managed to say, "I've reached it," and after finishing his last sentence, his body collapsed to the ground unconscious. His body fell to the ground, lying motionless in front of Mo Bi Young. She was also shocked and turned around to observe. Yong Hwarin's previous sword energy had broken the large wall behind Mo Bi Young, and at this sight, Mo Bi Young couldn't help but be surprised and wonder what was going on. Under the eaves, Yong Hwarin was practicing his sword techniques in front of Mo Bi Young. He swung his sword and struck with a powerful slash. Then he continued to unleash skilled moves, rotating around with his powerful strength. The surroundings seemed to be turned upside down by his powerful presence. Mo Bi Young was amazed and thought to herself that the young master's martial arts talent had reached such a level. In just a few days, he had mastered the forms of the Soaring Heavenly Dragon Emperor Sword and Green Bamboo Sword. Her eyes were sorrowful as she realized that although it seemed like he had no foundation in martial arts, he had still achieved this much. Yong Hwarin, the young master, was panting with sweat rolling down his forehead. He turned to Mo Bi Young and asked, "What do you think, Master Mo?" She replied, "Although you haven't grasped the profound meaning, you've been able to perform both sword techniques without hindrance, considering the time frame that's already very impressive." He smiled wryly and said, "You're too kind." Mo Bi Young looked at him with a puzzled expression. The space was shrouded in thick darkness when a person with a sinister smile suddenly appeared and then vanished. Mo Bi Young spoke up. The young master is absorbing martial arts at an unprecedented speed. It was hard to believe that he had been a weak person bedridden until recently, and she continued to observe and judge. Yong Hwarin listened intently, his expression showing doubt. She continued to speak about the red aura. He sighed and replied, "You're mentioning that again. Didn't I already say so?" He raised his hand and pointed to his head. "At that time, I was hit by the dragonflower sword, and was in a daze, unable to remember clearly. He closed his eyes and waved his hand helplessly. Only the Dragonflower Sword dares to treat the sect master's son like that. Moby Young looked at him with a cold gaze. She said angrily, "If the young master doesn't want to share, I won't ask any further." But as the Heavenly Center sect's vassal, she had a responsibility to monitor the young master's every move from now on. Young Huarin was taken aback and scratched his head. That's a bit scary. When night fell in the quiet space, Yong Huarin sat studying. After performing the Soaring Heavenly Dragon Emperor Sword and Green Bamboo Sword, he felt clearly that the martial arts of the Heavenly Center sect were only half of what they could be. Sitting beside the burning candle and the martial arts textbook, he sighed. The Heavenly Center sect's martial arts originally came from the demonic path. The space shifted back to the past, and an old man appeared, the founder of the Heavenly Center sect, who had once been a knight-errant active near the Henan area. He knelt before a white-haired person. "You are neither of the orthodox nor the demonic path, but you have learned 2 demonic techniques from a guardian of the Hidden Saint sect." Turning the page, the old man continued. "Although you learned demonic techniques as a knight-errant, you took the time to modify and recreate these 2 demonic techniques into the Soaring Heavenly Dragon Emperor Sword and Green Bamboo Sword." A man appeared with a sharp sword blocking the way. In the process, the power of these 2 sword techniques decreased significantly, but it was still enough to create the #1 swordsman in Henan. The man stood amidst a scene filled with sword aura, using orthodox techniques to perform demonic arts. Naturally, the martial arts became half-hearted. Even if one could reach the peak, it would be difficult to progress further. The man with a gloomy expression looked at the sword, the founder keeping the origin of this martial art secret. The candle continued to burn in silence, and the truth was finally revealed after many years. The palace was engulfed in flames, becoming the starting point for the downfall of the clan. Yong Huarin slammed his hand on the table, trying to restrain his anger. The way to perfect this incomplete martial art, he thought to himself. "I have a way," and with determination in his heart he exclaimed, "You're the only one who's experienced the future and returned to the past." Under the tree, 3 people were chatting. Yong Huarin held a cup of tea and said, "I plan to visit the various noble families, mother." The Heavenly Center sect's sect master, Yong Biyang, asked in surprise, "Why go to the noble families?" He replied, "I've recovered after learning martial arts, so I think I should go and greet the noble families as the betrothed son-in-law from birth." The old man reminisced that time passed quickly, and before his child was born, he and Yu Giolet's family had already arranged a marriage agreement through an engagement. The old man thought about the name of Yu Giolet's daughter and quickly replied that it was Lady Juga. As he looked at his reflection in the teacup, the old man said, "Indeed, Yu Giolet and I are close friends. If Yong Huarin comes, I'm sure he'll be very happy." The old man imagined the young lady Ting Shuo. She was very beautiful. The old man asked Yong Huarin, "When do you plan to leave?" The wife of the sect master held the old man's hand and said, "Husband Yong Huarin has not yet fully recovered. I think we should wait a little longer." The old man just smiled and said, "Yong Huarin is now at the age of maturity. Traveling and making friends is a good thing. I did the same at his age." The wife accepted. "All right, do as you wish, but since you'll be traveling far, please be careful. You'll need at least a month, so you'll need reliable guards." Dragonflower Sword. Moby Young showed a clear and angry expression, Yong Huarin said happily. "Moby Young Master." But then he looked at the 2 people behind her and asked, "Who are they?" The 4 people looked at each other, and curiosity was evident on their faces. Suddenly a hand grasped his shoulder, and another hand held his leg. The 2 young men were surprised. Despite not being very tall, they were very agile. One of them smiled brightly. The National Sword Jeong Wook spoke up. "It turns out the young master has been practicing martial arts. Indeed, he has changed a lot," Nam Wook added. Yong Huarin smiled and replied, "Thank you." 2 Wook swords. Ghost sword. Jong Wook gently clasped his hands and said, "Ha ha, it's nothing, young master. Dragonflower Sword, and we will protect you diligently. Your body will develop even further. Nam Wook confidently declared. The two muscular men. Two Wook swordsmen. Jung Wook and Nam Wook looked at Yong Hwarin with trust. Yong Hwarin thought to himself that although they appeared rough on the outside, they were true swordsmen known for their strength, and his father had truly been thoughtful. He decided, however, I will decide the route for this trip. Please follow me. Jung Wook was not very surprised and replied, There's no need to ask, young master. Everyone agreed in unison. Very well, let's set off. Yong Hwarin and his senior brother rode horses following Yong Seolan, who asked with tears in her eyes, Brother, do you really have to go? He comforted her. I'm sorry, but when I return from the central region, I'll take you to the place you want to go. The young girl nodded, still tearful. He smiled and gently stroked her head. Of course. The sect master saw this and placed his hand on Yong Hwarin's shoulder as a way of comfort. He turned to Yong Kyong and said, Yong Kyong, while I'm away, please take care of Seolan and the family. The young man looked up at him in surprise. Elder brother, why have you grown so tall? Then he scratched his head and smiled. Don't worry, brother. I'll protect everyone with my life. Yong Hwarin bid farewell, then farewell, father, mother. He clasped his hands in gratitude and continued, I'll be off now. Everyone departed on the deserted road. Suddenly someone called out, Wait, and rushed towards them. He turned around to look. The scene before him was a dilapidated gate with a signboard. A sedan chair was opened, revealing a sorrowful face. The person stepped out and hurriedly said, Young master. The young girl stopped in front of the horse carriage, panting. Yeonhwa pleaded, Please let me go with you. Yong Hwarin was taken aback and looked back. Jung Wook on horseback asked Yeonhwa, his eyes showing some hesitation. Jung Wook immediately objected, It's impossible. We can't let a young lady follow us. Just wait, Yong Hwarin said. The young girl is just trying to beg. Yong Hwarin got off of the horse and walked towards her. He opened his arms and hugged Yeonhwa, catching her off guard. Why she was taken aback, tears streaming down her face. Everyone watched in shock. His face reddened, and he seemed on the verge of tears as he said, Yeonhwa, you've always been by my side. I'm very grateful and touched by your kindness. His eyes sparkled, but he continued. The path I'm about to take is long and potentially dangerous. I can't take you with me now. I don't want you to be in danger because of me. Yeonhwa was surprised by his words. You're dear to me. He smiled warmly. Father, Mother, Yong Kyong Seolan, please wait for me for a while. Can you do that for me? She replied happily, Yes, young master. Yong Hwarin whispered, When I return to Heavenly Center Sect, everything will be different. With a determined look, he vowed to protect his family and prevent their downfall. He thought to himself that he would start by perfecting the incomplete martial arts techniques of his ancestors. He urged his horse on, shouting, Let's go! The horse galloped quickly, and he rode swiftly on the road, thinking, I'm sorry, father, but the family is just an excuse. He was gradually leaving behind the Longjong Mountain, where his family was, and was not far from the Wudang Mountain. His back gradually disappeared from view. The incomplete Wudang sect techniques of his family were precisely at Wudang Mountain. The majestic scenery with towering mountains and clouds almost covering them, they were on their way to Wudang, where the sky was blue and clouds floated lazily. Yong Hwarin's eyes slowly opened and his gaze shone brightly with a golden light. He found himself standing in the middle of a vast lake completely soaked and wondered where he was. After a while, he stood up and looked around at the endless blue water and white clouds. Yong Hwarin just walked aimlessly. Suddenly, he stopped, feeling a strange sensation. Under his feet, pieces of wood were floating. Not thinking much, he picked up a piece of wood to examine it. Upon closer inspection, there were 2 lines of text printed in yellow paint on the surface of the wood. He recognized the Heavenly Center Sect. Yong Hwarin's expression turned serious and cold. The air around them suddenly darkened. The scene before their eyes changed, and everything was engulfed in a sea of flames. The entire house was burned to ashes. Yong Hwarin could only stand there frozen in shock, unable to do anything. It couldn't be like this. He tried to rush into the burning space. But just as he reached the door, a gigantic figure with a ferocious face appeared and shouted, You fool! Before Yong Hwarin could react, He fell backward, raising his hand to shield his chest. The figure of an old man with fiery red eyes appeared. The old man spoke, "You've obtained a 1,000-year-old opportunity, yet you've lived it like a joke. So many times." Yong Hwarin's face turned pale. He gritted his teeth. What had that old man done? The old man's eyes were redder than ever, affirming, "You won't be able to change anything. Hand over your body to me." But before he could finish speaking, a force from somewhere slashed across. "What are you doing, young master?" Yong Hwarin immediately opened his eyes wide, looking at the figure opposite him with horror. Suddenly, the scene changed, and he found himself dueling with Mo-bi-young. Due to his lack of attention, his sword was knocked out of his hand. Mo-bi-young took advantage of the opportunity to place her sword on his shoulder, leaving Yong Hwarin frozen in shock. Looking at the sharp blade, he trembled. "I've lost!" Mo-bi-young also sensed something was off. "Young Master Long, are you not concentrating? Or is your health not good?" Yong Hwarin's expression was gloomy. Not just that. He looked at the sword in her hand, frowning. "I haven't slept well for the past few days." Just then a voice came from the forest. "Young master, if you're not feeling well, why don't you try training with us?" The speaker was Jong Wook, the second Wook, also known as the Demon Sword. Jong Wook. He was carrying 2 large rocks, panting heavily. "This is the best way to train our muscles." Nam Wook was also training beside him. "Hold this rock at your elbow to form a straight line." Yong Hwarin, drenched in sweat, tried to avoid it. "Next time we'll train together." Suddenly he looked up at the sky. "Moreover, I have something to discuss about our upcoming journey." On the other side, a group of people was heading into the forest. The only sound was the rustling of the wind. Yong Hwarin thought for a moment, before deciding, "Before we reach the family clans and sects, I want to stop by the mystic 7th mountain." The people around him looked at each other in confusion. Mystic 7th mountain. We've read an article by a famous alchemist who mentioned that somewhere on the mystic 7th mountain, there's not only a 100-year-old ginseng, but also a rare liquor called fire wine. When they mentioned the liquor, Jong Wook and Nam Wook's eyes lit up. Fire wine. Yong Hwarin saw their reaction and suddenly became cold. "I almost forgot. Aren't you two known as the 2 Wook little demons because of your love for liquor?" Jong Wook and Nam Wook pretended to cough. We agree. But Mo-bi-young immediately spoke up, "Young Master Long." She warned the mystic 7th mountain is located near the territory of the demonic path's golden central gate. We're from the righteous path. It might be dangerous to go there. However, Yong Hwarin remained calm. "Who said we're from the heavenly center sect? If we're discovered, we can just say we're from another sect." This statement enraged Mo-bi-young. How can the young master of the heavenly center sect say such a thing? The honor of our family. Young. Before she could finish, Yong Hwarin mounted his horse. Is honor that important? For him, if he met the great demonic leader there and was asked about his origin, he wouldn't hesitate to say he was from the demonic path. To him, survival was more important than anything. Jong Wook and Nam Wook agreed. Why should we from the righteous path fear the demonic path? I think we should follow the young master's plan. But Yong Hwarin knew their true intentions. They just wanted to drink the fire wine. Suddenly, Yong Hwarin covered his face and lied. "Master, I want to pick ginseng for my parents," which made them worried. Sure enough, his words had an effect. Mo-bi-young was immediately moved. "All right, if you've decided, we'll go to the mystic 7th mountain." The plan was set. Yong Hwarin was overjoyed inside, thanking everyone. "First, let's prepare fully at the nearby inn." Though he covered his face with his hand, his mouth was actually smiling. Of course it was just a lie, because Yong Hwarin knew for sure that there was no ginseng or fire wine on the mystic 7th mountain. Instead, there was something more precious than any rare plant. The demon poison stone flower which he had been searching for until today. The place was considered a graveyard where poisonous creatures in the mountains would go to die. The air was filled with damp fog. Over the years, the poisonous chi accumulated, forming pools and eventually freezing into demon poison stone. Only there could the poisonous medicine be found, and when a seed fell onto the demon poison stone, it would bloom into a flower. If the flower bloomed, it would contain poisonous qi and demonic energy. That was the demon poison stone flower. That was what Yong was after. The demon poison stone flower was currently on the mystic 7th mountain. When everyone arrived at an inn to rest, they overheard 2 guests sitting nearby discussing, "Have you heard about the gathering of demonic cultivators near the mystic 7th mountain? I heard they're gathering there, but I don't know why." A man came closer and whispered, "Don't be surprised. It's said that there's a kind of spiritual medicine that the devil path is very fond of, and that's the demon poison stone flower." Upon hearing this, Yong was surprised. Why does everyone know about this? Yong sat calmly opposite him, held a cup of tea, took a sip, and then put it down before saying, "I'm sure you've also heard that the demon poison stone flower has appeared, so the devil path is gathering at the mystic 7th mountain. I think we shouldn't go there now." Yong thought deeply. His master was right. The experts from the devil path would fight over the demon poison stone flower and a battle might ensue. However, he had a plan. "We don't need to get involved. I want to be the beneficiary of this battle. As long as we capture the vice chief of the 4 Dragons Gate Gocheok in Hubei, that's enough. In the end, he'll get the demon poison stone flower." According to what Yong remembered from his past life half a year later, there were rumors that Gocheok had broken through from the 1st realm to the peak realm. Surely the demon poison stone flower is the spiritual medicine that suits my martial arts. After all, the martial arts of the Heavenly Center sect originally belonged to the devil path. Then Yong picked up the teacup and took a big gulp. After that, he slammed the cup down on the table. His determination remained unchanged. "We're going to the mystic 7th mountain." This statement made Yong exclaim in surprise. She stood up. "Sir, didn't you hear? There are experts from the devil path there now." Yong "I believe this is an opportunity, and it's also one of the paths leading to the Juge family." He tried to make it clear that the Juge family was certainly related to this matter, and meeting them there, and then going to the Juge family together, was a reasonable choice. Young was stunned. She couldn't refute, so she could only accept. But if there are people we can't deal with, we must stay away. Yong suddenly remembered the 2 Wook swordsmen. When they went in, they found Jung Wook, and Nam Wook had fainted, still holding the wine bottle in their hands. Yong looked at them with a bored expression, but he confidently said, "Don't worry, I promise not to get close to places with many experts." Young was half believing, half doubting, and remained silent. After that, the 4 of them decided to check into an inn to rest after their long journey. This inn was decorated quite simply. "We'll rest here for a while." This would be their temporary shelter. Currently, the area near the mystic 7th mountain was like a 10-colored hot pot. They were still too weak to go there, but he smiled cunningly as he spoke. "The one who laughs last is the winner." From the start, Yong had assigned tasks to each person. From now on, the 3 of you will search among the inns and wine shops operated by the 4 Dragons Gate for those with few customers but many horses. Yong knew that Gocheok was the successor to the chief of the 4 Dragons Gate, and he would certainly travel with his martial artists. From this, he inferred that to move quickly, the martial artists would need horses, so there must be a horse stable. He also predicted that even if Gocheok obtained the demon poison stone flower, he wouldn't be able to absorb it immediately. Surely he would send it to an inn to transport it secretly to a safe place likely operated by the 4 Dragons Gate. If we find Gocheok first, we'll find the demon poison stone flower, because he was the one who possessed it in the past. That's why they came here. It means that this inn, Yong clenched his fist, waiting. If we stay here, Gocheok will definitely appear with the demon poison stone flower. Time passed quickly, and the sunset glow fell. Yong stood on the balcony with the 2 Wooks guarding beside him. Suddenly Nam Wook opened the door and came out. "Sir, what are you looking at?" Then the 2 Wooks discovered a stranger. "Sir, it's him. That's..." An old man was approaching. The person they were looking for, the vice chief of the 4 Dragons Gate, Gocheok. Yong was shocked by this information. This was beyond his prediction. Why is he here instead of the mystic 7th mountain? Doesn't he want to join the fight for the demon poison stone flower? Suddenly, a servant ran up to Gocheok and reported something. Yong tried to stretch his hand to listen. Damn it, it's too far. I can't hear clearly. He saw Gocheok's expression change suddenly. Then he ordered his subordinates to gather the 4 dragons, 8 swords, and the 4 dragons' 12 guests immediately. We'll chase after them. The 2 wooks were the first to react. The 4 dragons, 8 swords, and the 4 dragons. 12 guests are all top experts of the 4 Dragons Gate. If Gocheok is this agitated, the current situation must be very urgent. This could be a good opportunity to seize the demon poison stone flower, and the chances of getting it intact will increase. Without thinking much, Yong ordered, "Prepare to go. We'll chase after them." Yong disagreed. "Sir, isn't this too dangerous? Why do you keep putting yourself in danger?" She tried to persuade him, concerned that he wasn't thinking about his own safety. But Yong understood the cruelty of the martial world. Very well. The rivers and lakes will have great changes. To survive the waves, we need to become stronger, and spiritual medicine will help with that, he said calmly. Young objected. The rivers and lakes are currently peaceful, and we're not that weak that we need to rely on spiritual medicine. Yong immediately rebutted. No, we are weak. I'm asking you. Don't you really want spiritual medicine? As a martial artist, how can you not care about spiritual medicine? His words were like daggers, making Young unable to speak. It was just because they were weak that they didn't dare to participate in the fight for spiritual medicine. Yong shouted. We have ambition. We want to obtain that spiritual medicine to become stronger, to protect our family and sect from any external threats. He did not hesitate to threaten her. If you truly consider me as the young sect master, then listen to me. Young was taken aback. Young master, you who previously couldn't even take care of yourself now. She truly felt a bit intimidated. Could it be that we have underestimated the young master? Tu Wook suddenly burst into laughter. Young master is not lacking. We didn't expect you to be so determined. After speaking, Tu, Wook, and Nam. Wook clasped their hands together, too. Wook sword. Ghost Jong Wook and Nam Wook will follow the young sect master's orders. Young finally spoke up. Young will also follow the young sect master's will, like the 2 of them, but still reminded. However, young sect master, please remember that the Jianghu is not as easy as you think. Yong nodded in agreement. After that, the whole group became spirited. Then let's set off. Don't worry, Moshifu, he is very calm. No one in the Jianghu understands him better than I do because I have experienced enough. The golden sunlight spread across the top of the mystic 7th mountain. Yong was hiding behind a stone wall, quietly observing the surroundings. The disciples of 4 Dragons Gate were present in large numbers. Everyone held a sword in their hand. It was unbelievable that they had gathered so many people at mystic 7th mountain. Young directed her gaze towards a group of people, young sect master, that is. Yong quickly replied, without needing Young to continue. Correct. Gocheok and his subordinates from 4 Dragons Gate are forming a tight network. Jong Wook, who was also hiding in a nearby bush, felt nervous and reacted to the 4 words. Tight network. Should we act? Yong smiled gently, secretly making plans inside. They still haven't made any obvious moves. Clearly waiting. They will act when they detect a suspicious person or someone carrying the spiritual medicine. The group continued to observe discreetly. Let's take it slow. No need to rush. The atmosphere around them suddenly became tense, as if something had happened. It seemed like something had happened. Yong pointed towards a green stream and said, It looks like they've detected someone carrying the spiritual medicine. Let's wait by the other side of the stream. Nam Wook was puzzled. Why is that so? He patiently explained, because the person fleeing will choose the stream instead of climbing the mountain. After a while, the loud noises subsided, leaving only the gentle sound of flowing water around them. Yong reminded, From now on, let's try to keep our presence hidden. The group continued to wait. The outcome was as predicted. Not long after, a man appeared from the direction of the stream, struggling to run out and crying for help. A giant hand descended from the sky, attacking. Young Hwarin's group couldn't help but be startled. A burst of purple light erupted from the place of the attack, dazzling the eyes. In the midst of the light, a figure emerged. A mysterious man, his whole body radiating purple, held a branch of flowers tightly in his hand. The group hiding recognized the identity of the man. That's Bloodhand Fei Ma. Yong Hwarin didn't know him, but sensed his strong aura. His aura is not ordinary. He seems to be a famous figure. Jung Wook explained further. If we're talking about the top 100 demonic cultivators, he is definitely one of them. Yong Hwarin observed him carefully, but noticed that he seemed unstable. His gaze shifted to the hand holding the flower branch with visible blue veins. That's the Ma Poison Blossom Stone. Yong Hwarin frowned, showing caution. He's holding it here. If so, then. Bloodhand Fei Ma looked around cautiously, having been surrounded. The leader Go Cheok stepped forward and said, "After killing many experts of our sect, you still managed to run here. You are indeed Bloodhand Fei Ma." Bloodhand Fei Ma responded calmly. I didn't expect to be cornered by such insignificant people. If it weren't for being poisoned by that old demon from the Tang sect." He gathered his internal energy and his aura surged. "With my cultivation, you guys should have been torn apart long ago." Gocheok pulled out an object from his coat. "Bloodhand Fei Ma, do you know what this is?" In his hand was a shiny metal mass. Bloodhand Fei Ma's expression changed immediately upon seeing it. "Wan Niu Zhen. How did you get that?" Gocheok raised the Wan Niu Zhen. "I spent a lot of money to obtain it. Each of you surrounding me has a Wan Niu Zhen. Don't think I only have one." Bloodhand Fei Ma was surrounded by the Wan Niu Zhens. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth, his face darkening. "You think I'll be weakened by such dark devices?" His internal energy burst forth. Gocheok's group didn't back down. Instead, they signaled to launch an attack. Red-hot attacks flew towards Bloodhand Fei Ma. He didn't back down either, immediately counterattacking. The collision of their powers created a loud explosion and a burst of purple energy. The two powerful forces clashed, producing violent explosions. Yong Hwarin, observing the battle from outside, suddenly realized something. Wait a minute. His face became tense. Could it be? A loud explosion in the air drew everyone's attention. Bloodhand Fei Ma shot up into the air. His eyes were clearly tired. The old man laughed loudly. "You are still too inexperienced." Gocheok was furious and gritted his teeth, ordering the 4 dragons to fire. A barrage of firepower was unleashed, forming a surrounding encirclement around Bloodhand Fei Ma. Unable to dodge in time, the old man was still hit and cried out. The strong blow sent him falling into the water. Immediately, a loud shout erupted. "Bloodhand Fei Ma has fallen!" Gocheok did not miss the opportunity, pointing at Bloodhand Fei Ma as he fell, ordering 4 dragons, 8 swords. "All of you, eliminate Bloodhand Fei Ma and seize the spiritual medicine." The surrounding people immediately rushed towards him. At the spot where he fell, numerous swords were waiting to attack. The old man struggled to stand up, coughing. "You will never find the spiritual medicine." The pressure from the old man erupted strongly enough to repel those who attacked. "I will send all of you to the Yellow Springs." Bloodhand Fei Ma waved his hand. A bright red liquid splashed onto people one after another. They fell. Each time he acted, a life was taken. The horrific scene made those watching from afar shudder. Moby Young had to cover her nose due to the strong stench of blood. The stream turned red, but the number of people falling still did not stop. This was the first time she had witnessed such a horrific massacre. Moby Young exclaimed. Clearly, the young master is just a newcomer to the martial world. She turned to Yong Hwarin. "How can you remain so calm?" A loud shout erupted like a victory announcement. "We've got him." Bloodhand Fei Ma was covered in wounds. The swords and arrows still lodged in his body made him stumble. Finally, he fell into the red water. Gocheok ordered his subordinates to search thoroughly for the spiritual medicine, but they reported finding nothing. Gocheok's expression changed. He shouted, "Search more thoroughly. I saw him holding it with my own eyes." We have been tracking him closely. It's impossible for him to hide it elsewhere. Search again. Yong Huaren sensed that the situation was not right. Everyone follow me quickly. The group immediately followed him. Yong Huaren explained. Bloodhand Fei Ma didn't have the spiritual medicine on him. I have guessed where it is. Mobi Young was surprised. Really? Yong Huaren nodded in confirmation. Bloodhand Fei Ma had dropped the spiritual medicine into the stream as a precaution. Yong Huaren continued to analyze the water wall that Bloodhand Fei Ma had created during the battle. Do you all remember when he created the water screen? That thought shouldn't have occurred. Even if he could block the dark weapons, he couldn't clearly see his enemies. As Fei Ma, he should have been able to use his lightness skill to dodge, but he chose to create a water screen, proving that he had dropped the spiritual medicine into the stream at that time. Yong Huaren's eyes showed determination. After escaping, he just needed to follow the stream to find it. Suddenly, a noise came from behind. The group immediately became alert. We must hurry. They will soon realize the spiritual medicine is in the stream and chase after us. In the middle of the stream, a bright purple light radiated. The spiritual medicine appeared amidst the light. We've found it. Yong Huaren hastened to pick up the spiritual medicine. Finally, he held the spiritual medicine in his hand. It was the Ma Poison Blossom Stone. Wait a minute. Yong Huaren poured a few drops from the medicine bottle onto the flower petals. Young master, isn't that... He didn't wait for his subordinate to finish speaking before nodding the flower petals in his hand suddenly turned purple. Right, it's poison. Mobi Young immediately stopped him. Young master people of the righteous path shouldn't use poison. He put the real spiritual medicine away in a wooden box. My late master's poison is a useful tool. If we coat the flower petals with poison, he will think it's the Ma Poison Blossom Stone. Yong Huaren happily showed off his handiwork. Although we can't deceive him for long, just one moment of carelessness is enough for us. Zhong Wook was a bit disbelieving. That easy others risked their lives to Zheng Duo, and we just followed behind and obtained the spiritual medicine. Yong Huaren smiled, looking at the box containing the spiritual medicine in his hand. It's probably just luck. He remained cheerful, not showing any vigilance. Let's set off now. But something unexpected happened. The spiritual medicine in his hand was snatched away in an instant. Bloodhand Fei Ma, who had appeared behind him without notice, was holding the spiritual medicine tightly. Everyone was stunned by the rapid turn of events. Bloodhand Fei Ma looked at them, his surroundings filled with a deep purple aura. The demonic poison blossom stone is mine.